Okay. But we still got football to talk about here on Game Night. Coming up, we'll get to your thoughts and comments throughout the hour at 609-403-0973 is the text board. You can also DM the show through the 973 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle. Coming up tonight on Game Night, we will be joined by former NFL Pro Bowl linebacker, played with the Steelers as well as the Patriots, a couple other teams as well. Chad Brown will join us. Now, Chad's an interesting guy to talk to, and I'm looking forward to it because we're going to get a defensive player's perspective on this Super Bowl, because one of the things we have not talked about a lot with this game this weekend is the fact that you have two defenses that pretty much have played well down the stretch of the season, and two defensive coordinators who have been highly scrutinized in the last few years, the Eagles' Jonathan Gannon and the Chiefs' Steve Spagnuolo. We'll also get Chad's perspective because he's out in the Denver area about the Sean Payton getting hired, because I feel like this argument has gone completely sideways about the Sean Payton hiring and the Russell Wilson thing. I think there's a lot of people who are having a lot of irrational takes about that. So we will get to all that coming up here on 97.3 ESPN. But I wanted to start with this. One of the storylines of Super Bowl 57 is the quarterbacks. And I know for a lot of people, it's Black History Month, and it's a time that people reflect on the history of culture and growth and development and evolution. And I think the NFL has been a part of that growth and evolution. And Doug Williams, the Washington quarterback who was on that team that won the Super Bowl in the late 80s with Joe Gibbs, he's a guy that I think is one of those players who, if he was born at a different time and place, he would have been a much more successful pro quarterback. Don't forget, this is a guy who came into the NFL. He was like 6'4" and a powerful, like 225. He was built like a monster. But he got drafted by the worst team in the NFL at the time, the Tampa Bay Bucks. And he kind of was good enough for Tampa for them to not be the worst team ever, but he was in a horrible situation. And Joe Gibbs acquired this guy, and he was basically the backup until Jay Schrader got injured. Schrader gets injured, and he leads the team to a championship. And if it wasn't for injuries, he might have had a really good career in Washington, because his physical skills made a lot of sense in Joe Gibbs' offense. Well, Doug Williams was a guest this week on Keyshawn, J. Will, and Max. And he gave his perspective on Hurts and Mahomes, the two first Black quarterbacks who are both starting in the same Super Bowl against each other.
What those two guys did this whole season, how they played, I think it's unbelievable. Especially Jalen. We knew Patrick for what he's done, but nobody gave Jalen a chance because they always looked at Jalen as an athlete, as a runner. But Jalen went and made himself bold as a passer. He can do it from the pocket. He just happened to be a quarterback who can work from the pocket and think in the pocket, but also he put pressure on the defense because he can run. I think that's who Jalen really is.
And you hear the way he talks about Jalen. It's not in terms of just one thing or another. This is the point that Max Kellerman as well brought up a couple of days ago here on Game Night, and that is Jalen Hurts is no longer a one-dimensional player, okay? One of the issues that people had with guys like Cam Newton and Michael Vick early in their careers was that they were not polished and developed pocket passers. They were phenomenal athletes who had phenomenal skill and ability, but that skill and ability was not refined. And because Michael Vick went to the Atlanta Falcons and Cam Newton went to the Carolina Panthers. Neither one of them were on teams that cultivated their skill set. The test case for the mobile quarterback and their success in the NFL always falls back on two players historically. Because even though Cam Newton and Michael Vick were phenomenal players and Newton won a league MVP, the two guys who actually set the standard for what a mobile quarterback can be in the NFL were Steve Young and Randall Cunningham. And part of the reason why we point to those two guys is because both of those players were a major part of the league's change of direction from one style of football to another. As the game expanded, as the field got stretched, as offenses evolved and the league evolved with those offenses, players like Randall Cunningham and Steve Young are still today the example of what a guy like Jalen Hurts can do. Because when you look at Randall's career with the Eagles, he was the ultimate weapon, but he was also a quarterback playing for a head coach who gave him no structure, no discipline, nothing. He was just told to go out there and play ball. And Randall was so talented that for his Eagles career, he was able to do that. He still threw 150 touchdowns, but also he threw 105 interceptions. When he got to Denny Green and the Vikings, he was almost a different quarterback, because that season where he went off with 34 touchdowns and 10 interceptions, he showed you he can be a good quarterback in an offense. Listen, with the Eagles, Randall had a 30 touchdown passing season in 1990. He was second in the MVP voting. Steve Young, he had a miserable experience in Tampa. He was the guy who came in after Doug Williams left. And frankly, if you watched him in Tampa, you would have thought, how is this guy ever going to be a Hall of Famer? He gets the structure. He gets Bill Walsh. He becomes a two-time league MVP and a Hall of Famer. And frankly, if Randall had more structure or the same structure as Steve Young had, maybe he is in the Pro Football Hall of Fame as well. But both of those guys showed you that you can be a guy who runs and still be an effective packet passer. You know, people overlook the fact that for his career, Steve Young had over 4,200 rushing yards. And we all know about Randall and his exploits. So now we transition to what we see with Hurts and what we see with Mahomes. And what we see with these two players, as we will hear this Sunday, Super Bowl 57 right here on 97.3 ESPN FM, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. Of course, we have all the Super Bowl coverage all week with the Sports Bash at Radio Row with Mike Gill. And of course, Game Day, Kevin Harlan, Kurt Warner on the call. When you look at these two quarterbacks, they are both examples of how the league has changed. People forget that Patrick Mahomes was not a surefire player that he is today when he was drafted. Mahomes coming out of college, let's be realistic, he had a lot of question marks. And he had a lot of question marks because he was in an environment that didn't develop him properly. You seen a pattern here? At Texas Tech, this is why people like myself and Mike Gill, we don't agree on a lot of things, but we both agree that Cliff Kingsbury was going to be a bust in the NFL. Cliff Kingsbury had Pat Mahomes at Texas Tech, and guess what? He never helped him become the best version of himself. Patrick Mahomes has said in interviews multiple times that the person who helped him become the quarterback he is today was Alex Smith. Because at Texas Tech, he was playing off of pure ability. He was going out there and chucking the ball against those classic no defenses in the Big Ten. You know, back in the Big Ten when everyone was scoring like 40 points a game. Mahomes had horrible footwork in college, Mahomes was a guy in college that people looked at and they were like, he's got amazing arm talent, but he has no ability to read a defense properly. He was all arm and no mechanics. And the Chiefs said, we are going to sit this guy for an entire year. And he sat behind Alex Smith and he learned and he understood and he worked on his footwork and he learned about the game of football. And now he's the best quarterback in the NFL. And you could argue that if guys like Mahomes with the Chiefs or Barrett Rodgers, who sat for a few years in Green Bay, if those guys didn't sit and get to sit behind the type of quarterbacks that they did, they wouldn't have developed into the players they are. Then you got Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts was recruited as a mobile quarterback at Alabama. He loses his starting job at the national championship game. He stays at Alabama to help Tua. Then he has to come in when Tua gets injured for one of his gazillion times in college and basically leads Alabama to an SEC championship win, goes to Oklahoma, becomes a pocket passer, becomes a guy who can be top 10 in college football in completion percentage and numerous other stats and second in the Heisman Trophy voting. He gets to Philadelphia, and initially, he doesn't have the development that he needs. Initially in Philadelphia, the quarterback room was Carson Wentz, Nate Sudfeld, and Jalen Hurts. And you're telling me that Hurts was being helped by Wentz and Sudfeld? That's a good joke. Sirianni comes in. He brings in a different quarterback coach, Brian Johnson. They change who the backup quarterback is. They bring in somebody who can speak to Jalen in his own way. And now Jalen Hurts is a MVP finalist. Probably not going to win it. Probably it's going to be Mahomes. But both of these quarterbacks are a byproduct of development and the change of this league from what it used to be to what it is now. And frankly, Jalen Hurts and Patrick Mahomes are not here today if it wasn't for what's happened with Steve Young and Randall Cunningham years ago. And that's part of what Doug Williams is seeing, because a part of him, I'm sure, is saying, you know, if I would have been drafted in today's NFL, my career would have gone differently. We'll talk more football coming up next with Chad Brown, 3-time Pro Bowl linebacker. Now he's a broadcaster, which you can hear all over the nation covering football. Joins us next with me, Josh Hennig, on 97.3 ESPN.
Here's what you missed on Keyshawn, J. Will, and Max.
Philadelphia is not in that situation. They tore it down and built it back up. They have not pushed all their egg to the basket that's going to hurt them. So I don't know where Jerry gets this idea that the Philadelphia Eagles, they empty the bucket, no, they're going to be around for the next 8 years before we have to think about them crashing and burning again.
Keyshawn, J. Will, and Max, weekday mornings at 6 on 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app.
You're going to feel a puff of air.
Jong's Optometry has set their sights on staffing up.
Try the next line. Hey, Kim, can you tell our 2 o'clock we're running 15 behind? Sorry, we're a bit backed up today.
He needs an optometric technician to keep an eye on it all.
Where are the dilation drops?
Indeed can help him hire great people fast.
I need Indeed.
Indeed you do. You can schedule and conduct virtual interviews all from your employer dashboard. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get $75 towards your first sponsored job. Terms and conditions apply.
Paid for by Christian Care Ministry.
Let's see, if something costs less, but people are happier with it, that sounds like something to look into, and that's MediShare. Maybe you've heard switching to MediShare to pay for healthcare can save the typical family $500 a month. And that's huge, but it's also true that people are way more satisfied after making the switch too. The customer satisfaction rate for MediShare is double that of the typical health insurance plan. MediShare works. It's been around for more than a quarter century, and members have shared more than $3 billion of each other's bills. People love having telehealth and a huge nationwide PPO network. So yeah, you can save a ton and like it better. Imagine being happy with how you're taking care of your health care. So if you're self-employed or part of the gig economy, or you just want a plan you're happy with, you can call right now and get a price within 2 minutes. A very, very smart use of 2 minutes. Here's the number you need. 855-51-BIBLE. That's 855-51-BIBLE. 855-51-BIBLE.
May old car problems be forgot in a brand new SUV. Stop! You can't start the new year in an old car. Looking for some holiday cash? Then don't miss Matt Platt Nissan's holiday vehicle buyback. It doesn't matter what you drive. AJ, the trade man, wants to buy your vehicle today, regardless of the make, miles, condition, or situation. AJ will buy your ride for cash today. So treat yourself to a brand new Nissan Rogue. 0 down, 0 payments, 0 interest on every new Matt Platt Nissan Rogue.
It's on at Matt Platt Nissan.
Drive away with peace of mind, because only Matt Platt Nissan has a 4-day love it or leave it return policy. MattPlattNissan.com. Requalifications exist with approved credit. 2778 per thousand financed on in-stock 2023 Nissan Rogues. Not all will qualify. Go to MattPlattNissan.com for complete details or call 844-917-4758. Price includes all costs to be paid by consumer except for licensing, registration, and taxes. It's on at Matt Platt Nissan on the Black Horse Pike. Egg Harbor Township.
Texting privacy policy and terms and conditions posted at textplan.us. Texting enrolls for recurring automated text marketing messages. Message and data rates may apply or apply. Stop, opt out. Go to nomoredraftywindows.com for full offer details.
Attention all homeowners. Do you know when to replace your windows? Feeling too hot or cold? It's time to replace. Fog between the glass. Time to replace. Spending too much on expensive energy that literally goes out the window? It's definitely time to replace. If you've put off replacing windows in your home because it's too expensive, here's great news. You can now get a free in-home window consultation and free price quote from Renewal by Andersen, the company with the most 5-star reviews among leading full-service window replacement companies. And right now you can save $359 off every window and $887 off every door. Just text PLACE to 200-300 for your free consultation on top quality affordable windows or patio doors for $0 down, 0 payments, and 0 interest for a year. That's right, you don't pay a dime for an entire year. Plus save $359 off every window and $887 off every door. But hurry, these big dollar savings end this month. Text PLACE to 200-300 right now. Text the word PLACE to 200-300. Don't wait, text PLACE to 200-300.
My brother-in-law died suddenly, and now my sister and her kids have to sell their home. That's why I told my husband we could not put off getting life insurance any longer. An agent offered us a 10-year, $500,000 policy for nearly $50 a month. Then we called SelectQuote. SelectQuote found us identical coverage for only $19 a month, a savings of $369 a year.
Whether you need a $500,000 policy or a $5 million policy, SelectQuote could save you more than 50% on term life insurance.
For your free quote, call SelectQuote at 1-800-434-3366. That's 1-800-434-3366. Or go to SelectQuote.com. 1-800-434-3366. That's 1-800-434-3366.
SelectQuote. We shop. You save. Full details on example policies at selectquote.com/commercials.
Hi, Merrill Reese from Mike's Seafood Run Walk for Autism in Sea Isle City. The Mike's Seafood Run Walk for Autism has been promoting awareness and raising funds for special service schools and families of special needs children. Come join over 5,000 participants in the 5K race and the Family Fun Walk, followed by a huge after party. Join us in huge heated tents where they'll have great food, unbelievable door prizes, and the award ceremony. The party is not just for runners and walkers, it's for the entire family. They'll have clowns, superheroes, and face painters for the kids. For more information or to register, go to polarbearrunwalkforautism.com.
Mike's Seafood Run Walk for Autism is Saturday, February 18th at JFK and the Boardwalk in Sea Isle City. Registration is from 9:30 to 11:30. Run Walk starts at noon.
Any day you can do something for children with disabilities, it's a good day.
You're listening to Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
Game Night here on 97.3 ESPN being brought to you by my friends over at Jenkins & Sons. Trust Jenkins, just like 97.3 ESPN did, because we need to make our studio comfortable. That is who we called. No need to call the drain guy, the heater guy, or the plumbing guy. Jenkins technicians have got you covered. From new heating and air installation, service and maintenance, ductless air conditioning systems, water heaters, boilers, gas furnaces, and more. Just one call does it all. 609-641-6262 and online at jenkinsandsons.com. Over on the text board at 609-403-0973. Jeff in Ocean City. Yes, Jeff, those Big 12 defenses, they were bad for so long. You know, it's so weird because there was a time when in college football, the Big 12 had some phenomenal talent on defense. Now, we're going back to like the 90s, obviously, but there was a time that the Big 12 was a lot of slugfest going on. And it feels like that when Mike Leach went to Texas Tech and started the air raid down there, it forced the other schools to adapt and maybe get out of their comfort zone. And I feel like, if Mike Leach doesn't go to Texas Tech and basically blow the imagination of everybody involved, that maybe you don't see a guy like Patrick Mahomes go there and have the stats that he did in college. Look, Mahomes always had talent, but talent doesn't mean anything if it's not refined, if it's not developed. And so, to me, guys like, as I said earlier this week, Mahomes and Hurts, they're not who they are today if they didn't play in today's league. By the way, speaking of texts, so I told Mike Gill I would do this, and I'm not going to read all the texts, but there were a lot of people this year who really did not like the Eagles and were really anti-Eagles along the way. And it's funny how whether it is a Todd in Cherry Hill or a Nick in Seville or a Tim in Williamstown or Tom in EHT, Paul in Millville, or whoever the anonymous people are who don't put their names on text, we haven't heard from those people. And I think part of the reason why we have not heard from those people, and I'm not going to get into reading every text right now because we only have the power hour here on Game Night on 97.3. I think part of the issue why there were so many doubters about the Eagles this year was because of the fact that people just don't want to accept that the Philadelphia Eagles can be a winning football team. And if the Eagles do win Super Bowl 57, their tier changes. I was talking with Max Kellerman the other day about this, about how he said, hey, if Hurts wins a championship, he might be the next guy. He might be the next it, right? Well, you turn around and you find out that Jalen is not just could be the next, best quarterback, but it could also be the fact that you have a situation where if the Eagles and Jalen win this championship, if they do win Super Bowl 57, you have to change how you look at this organization moving forward. As promised, joining us right now, 15-year NFL veteran and 3-time Pro Bowl, Chad Brown. Of course, he played with the Steelers and the Patriots when those teams went to the Super Bowl, and he joins us right now here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. Chad, welcome in. How you doing today?
I am fantastic. How you fellas doing? Happy Friday to you.
Happy Friday. So I'm glad to have you on because I really want to get your perspective on this game because, Chad, everyone's talking about the quarterback so much, but you play defense. So I want to get your perspective on this game. First, talk to us about these quarterbacks from a defensive player's eyes. What is your impression of a guy like Jalen Hurts?
Jalen Hurts, I don't think is a guy who's going to kill you in the passing game. He's definitely going to be efficient, but the ability for him to make plays with his legs is what makes him really special. NFL defenses are just simply not built to deal with a cornerback the ball as well as Jalen Hurts does. So that process makes you a little bit more cautious defensively. It slows you down defensively. And then as a pass rusher, when you have a quarterback who not only can escape the pocket, but then really hurts you when he escapes the pocket because of his skill set, you've got to find ways to defend him with a little bit more caution. It sounds crazy, but you can rush Tom Brady with more reckless abandon than you can actually rush Jalen Hurts. So that skill set can wear you down as a pass rusher. I beat my offensive tackle. I'm on my way to the sack, and now Jalen Hurts outruns me and gets around me. That is demoralizing. Hey, I beat my tackle clean. I should have a sack here. But this guy is such a find a way to get him down.
What is the most impressive thing for you about Hurts's development? Because let's be realistic, there's a lot of people who do not believe in this guy. We had people, calling the shows, DMing our shows, texting in, listening, saying this guy can't play quarterback, he can't read defenses, he can't throw a deep ball, and all of a sudden now he's in Super Bowl 57 and he's a finalist for the MVP, Chad.
Well, I have been calling Jalen Hurts games for a couple of years. So I called his games at Alabama. I called his games at Oklahoma. And I've called his games in the NFL. And to see a guy who always finds a way to continue to get better. I think that's what every coach wants. I think that's what every fan base should want. Yeah, every player can't show up on draft day as a finished product, but you want guys who find ways every year to get better at their game. So Jalen Hurts, being the son of a coach, has kind of carries that attitude and finds ways to continue to get better. His passing game is better. His ability to go through his progression is better. His comfort within the pocket, to stay in the pocket and to believe in his offensive line and keep his eyes downfield. All those things have gotten better with him every single season. So I understand there's some fans who may wish that their quarterback, was always going to be the next Tom Brady. There's only one of those dudes. He just retired. But you should be darn happy that Jalen Hurts is your quarterback and he continues to find ways to improve his game.
I'm glad you said that, because one of the things we've been saying here on 97.3 ESPN for a while, talking with Chad Brown, 15-year NFL linebacker and pass rusher, is that, Pat Mahomes, Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, they're special. You don't find special every day. And so you can still win a championship without having super special guy, because guess what? At the end of the day, I don't remember Dan Marino or Warren Moon ever winning a championship.
Yeah, I think you have to recognize the situation. If you get a special once-in-a-generation quarterback, a guy who's a magician like Patrick Mahomes, well, that's great, and you can get by with that. But you can also win championships with a quarterback who's very, very good, who's consistent, who's reliable, and then arm that guy with some weapons and give him a great defense. And that's what they've done in Philly. That front four pass rush for the Eagles, where they got four guys with double-digit sacks. The fifth guy is Fletcher Cox. Last time I checked, Fletcher Cox is really good too. Mm-hmm. So they have managed to build a team around Jalen Hurts. And this is something that you can do before your quarterback moves on to his next contract. Now we see the value of quarterbacks in the NFL. It seems like if they don't give up a $250 million, they're crushed or disappointed and hurt. So you got a chance to win a championship, build up your team around that guy, be happy you got this guy, rather than being saddled with a contract like, say, the Broncos have with Russell Wilson. Not only is it going to be impossible for them to get out of this contract, but it's impossible for them to kind of build a team around Russell Wilson because of all the money he's taking as far as a percentage of the salary cap.
Chad, I want to ask you, flip it over to the defensive side. It's a topic not talked enough about in this matchup. Two defensive coordinators who, let's be realistic, they have been scrutinized at times over the last couple of years. Jonathan Gannon in Philadelphia, Steve Spagnuolo in Kansas City. What do you see from these defenses heading in to Super Bowl 57?
Well, I think both defensive coordinators are very good defensive coordinators. I think the Eagles defense is clearly the better of the two defenses. And it starts with those guys up front. Like I mentioned, Hassan Riddick is an absolute game record. We saw he essentially ended the 49ers season in the first quarter with him getting in the backfield, getting those hits on Brock Purdy. Kyle Shanahan, one of the best play callers and play designers in the NFL, clearly didn't have a plan for Hassan Riddick. And if you don't plan for that guy, and your thought is, we're going to block him with our third string tight end, where are you going to get your quarterback knocked out the game? And that's what happened there. So that's what the Eagles front can do to you. You go to the other side for the Kansas City Chiefs. Obviously, Chris Jones is one of the most dominant interior pass rushers over the last couple of years. He is an absolute beast to deal with in the run game, in the pass game. Frank Clark, usually a disappointment in the regular season, usually finds a way to step it up in the postseason. Got a sack last week. But that Chiefs secondary, that may be the most critical unit in this entire game. because that Chiefs secondary during the regular season, I believe, gave up the most touchdown passes of any team in the NFL. So the Eagles defense, number 2 in the league, the Chiefs defense giving up a ton of touchdowns through the air. That gives me some concern for the Chiefs fans.
You mentioned about the Chiefs secondary. I want to hit on that really closer because the conversations that we were having here in the Philadelphia area was the 49ers secondary is not that great. Well, in the NFC Championship game, it wasn't the passing game for the Eagles that got it done. It was actually the run game and the defense. So can the Eagles take advantage in your mind of the Chiefs secondary in a way that they didn't get to do versus the 49ers?
I certainly think so. I think so. The offensive line for the Eagles obviously is incredible. The ability to run the football and all those things. And when you run the football, obviously play action pass comes off of that. So if they are able to establish the run, force the Chiefs to bring another guy down into the box, that's when that secondary can get exposed. A.J. Brown obviously is amazing. The wide receivers for the Eagles are incredibly talented. So the opportunity to get a one-on-one in play action when Jalen Hurts has 6 or 7 guys blocking for him, he's got time in the pocket to get one deep downfield. I can see a deep touchdown pass or 2 in this ball game if the Eagles are able to establish their run game early and then go to play action.
Of course, one of the other storylines of this game is how do the Eagles deal with Pat Mahomes? Like, the people have been criticizing the Eagles. Hey, the last time they played a decent quarterback basically was Dak Prescott on Christmas Eve. They haven't really played this type of tier of quarterback all year. And when the last time they did play a decent quarterback, people say gave up all these points and all these yards. So now the Eagles defense is healthy compared to Christmas Eve. What can they do against Mahomes, or do they just got to hope to contain him in Kansas City?
I don't think you can shut down Mahomes. Obviously, Tampa Bay did that a couple years ago in the Super Bowl. Andy Reid and that front office for the Chiefs went about trying to shore up their offensive line and improve that group, and they've done that a bit. Patrick Mahomes is an absolute magician. So the ankle injury that he got a couple weeks back, I wasn't concerned about that so much because he may be the best off-platform thrower of any quarterback in NFL history. When you're coaching a quarterback, you want him to have his feet underneath him. You want him to be able to step into a throw. So there's a process, there's a mechanical process to throwing a football that Patrick Mahomes, because he has such incredible arm talent, doesn't have to rely upon. So he is a magician. He's going to get his. So if I'm Coach Gannon, I'm talking to my defense, yeah, they're going to make plays. That guy is going to get his. We're going to do everything right on the play, yet he's still going to find a way to get it done. Now, we just got to make sure he doesn't do that too often. And obviously, the Eagles will have to lean upon their offense to score some points as well.
We're talking with Chad Brown. He played in the NFL for 15 years, 3-time Pro Bowler with the Steelers, the Seahawks, and the Patriots. And I bring that up specifically, Chad, because talk to the audience about what it means to play in an organization that has stability and success, because this is an Eagles franchise now that has been to 2 Super Bowls with 2 different head coaches in less than 10 years and 7 NFC championship games in the last 23 years. So what does it mean for a player when you're playing in an organization like the Steelers or the Patriots or the success that Seattle had with Mike Holmgren in Seattle?
It is an incredible situation because everything's operating at a high level. When you have the kind of success and the sustained success, there's confidence in that. And with that confidence, everybody does a better job. The guy who cooks the omelets in the morning, he makes a better omelet. The guy who paints the stripes on the field for practice, those stripes are straighter. And that confidence carries over and spills over to the team. And then even in the, say, for the Steelers in the scouting department, when you had sustained success and you know what defense you're going to play, when they're scouting outside linebackers, it's not some kind of mystery of what they're looking for. I'm looking for Greg Lloyd, Kevin Green, Chad Brown, Joey Porter, T.J. Watt. I'm looking for those kind of guys. I know how to scout those kind of guys because I've seen those style of players be successful in this system. That continuity carries over from year to year. It keeps you at a high level of sustained success.
talk to the audience about Bill Belichick, because he is this grand mystery. You know, people have a million names for him and a million opinions about him. As someone who is in that building, what is Bill Belichick like, and how was he either similar or different from the guy who you played for earlier in your career in Bill Cowher?
Two very different dudes. I mean, obviously very, good football coaches. Both will be in the Hall of Fame. Bill Cowher's already in. Belichick will be in after he's done coaching. But Bill Cowher is all about the emotion of the game, the passion of the game. There's that great NFL clip of him kind of breaking down the kickoff team before they go on the field, and his final words are, "Punch him in the mouth first." And that's kind of Bill Cowher style football. We're going to be young, we're going to be aggressive, we're going to fly around, and we're going to punch him in the mouth first. And along the way, we want to have some scheme and some details and fool them, but it really is going to be about our aggressive nature of play. Versus Bill Belichick, where it's always going to be about making the right play. Every situation for all 11 guys on the field, it's about making the right play. So that Patriots staff, maybe the best teachers of football I've ever been around, and they're able to teach people to make the right play. Because if you notice, those Patriot teams aren't always full of the most athletic or talented guys. Bill is always looking for smart players who can recognize what the right play is to make. He's going to teach you that, and when that situation comes up, you better memorize it, and you better be able to execute it, because Bill's going to find somebody else who will if you can't.
You mentioned about Cowher and his passion, and it just made me immediately think of what happened with Julian Love of the Giants this week, criticizing Nick Sirianni for being so emotional and basically saying he's basically there for the ride, is what Julian Love said on NFL Network. And I just have to think, like, a guy like Sirianni, when you see him, is he too passionate? Because the players in the Eagles locker room, they've bought into him. People on the outside, they're the ones who are criticizing the Eagles head coach.
There's a certain, some of the smirks and the sideline stuff, some of that, cussing out the refs. My wife, who's obviously into football because we've been married for almost 30 years, was like, "What's up with that guy?" So I don't think he comes across as a likable kind of guy.
Mm-hmm.
But as I explained to her, I've had coaches like that. From the outside, they're not lovable, but from the inside that facility, that dude will go to the wall for you. He'll have your back, therefore you have his back. So that's that kind of relationship that folks on the outside can't quite understand and grasp. They only see some of the worst parts of the guy, and those guys typically hold back their best parts. They don't give those to the public. They only give them to their team, the people that they really, really love and that are part of their circle.
Speaking of head coaches, what is your take on Sean Payton in Denver? I know that you are out there in that area. There's a lot of people have a lot of questions about Russell Wilson, but Sean Payton is considered a guy who, has been successful in the NFL, but he only has one championship. And some of these years in New Orleans, they weren't that great, right?
I've got to run. I've got another call after this. But for Sean Payton, his 15 years as head coach in the New Orleans Saints, I think 4 times he had the number 1 offense in the NFL. There were another 7 times, 8 times where he was a top 10 offense. So of all the candidates, DeMeco Ryans, Dan Quinn, Jim Harbaugh that the Broncos were looking at, Sean Payton seems to be the most likely guy who can fix Russell Wilson and get Russell Wilson moving in the right direction. So the biggest issue with the Broncos this last season was they did not get what they needed from Russell Wilson. You're bringing Sean Payton, his experience with Drew Brees. The expectation is that Russell Wilson will rebound. Now, I saw a guy who I thought was on the decline, lost a step or two, but still there were a lot of structural things wrong with that football team, the offense in particular under Nathaniel Hackett, that I think Sean Payton will not repeat. And that Broncos offense I expect to be much better this season.
Chad, I appreciate you squeezing me in today. Give him a follow on Twitter at ChadBrown94 and check out his business, Ship Your Reptiles. Chad, great stuff. I appreciate you squeezing me in today.
All right, take it easy, man. Good talking to you. Have a great weekend.
Josh Hennig here on Game Night, 97.3 ESPN FM, 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Sea Isle. Couple things Chad said I want to touch on before we go. First, about the Sirianni thing, I thought it was interesting that he brought up the fact that, Sirianni is a guy that he mentioned, from the outside, he may not be that likable, Chad said, but in that building, in that facility, the players love him, they embrace him, and they buy into him. I think that's a big part of the Eagles and their success this year has been the fact that this is a head coach that the players have bought into. And whether it's Brandon Graham or Jason Kelsey or any of these guys in that locker room, listen, there are 7 or 8 guys on this team this year who were on the Super Bowl championship team. They could have easily turned on this guy last year or this year. They could have easily at some point along the way said, this guy doesn't know what he's doing. He's an idiot. We got to get rid of this guy. Listen, part of the reason why Chip Kelly was fired back in 2015 was because the players themselves got tired of Chip and his antics, we'll call it, right? Guys like Lane Johnson being very angry, very unhappy with the situation and the environment. So the Eagles as a player and as a locker room never did that to Nick. So who are we to say that Sirianni's attitude and how we perceive him works or doesn't work? Because guess what? What matters is that locker room. It doesn't matter what we see on the outside. What matters is what the guys think of each other in that locker room. And if the players sit there and say that Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni are our guys, then who am I or you to say they're not? Great stuff from Chad Brown. Give him a follow, as I said, on Twitter at ChadBrown94. Coming up on the other side, we'll get back to the text board, 609-403-0973. And you can DM the show through 973 ESPN mobile app. It's free, thanks to First Bank of Sea Isle.
It's Sixers basketball tonight on 97.3 ESPN with the voice of the 76ers, Tom McGinnis, calling all the exciting play-by-play action.
The Yang to Maxey. Maxey drives, turns the corner, down the lane, right hand, left. It's good. Maxey with a drive, off the window and in.
The Sixers are in San Antonio to face the Spurs tonight. Coverage begins at 8 p.m. Philadelphia 76ers basketball on your radio home of the Sixers in South Jersey. 97.3 ESPN.
Hi, it's Pete from Chicky and Pete's. You'll fall in love with our Valentine's specials, including baked oysters with a delicious cheese blend, butter, garlic, and herb oil. Or enjoy a heaping plate of our fresh raw oysters through February 14th. Chickies and Pete's.
First, we decide where we want to go. Then we need to know the best way to get there. Hi, my name's Adam Barada. I'm the owner of Advantage Gold. We're the highest rated precious metals firm in the country. We teach people how to own physical gold and silver. Now, we've won the Best of TrustLink Award 4 years in a row because we educate our clients on how to buy gold and silver the right way. We don't pay celebrity spokespeople millions of dollars. We'd rather pass that value on to you. Call 800-900-8000 and speak with one of our experts. We'll send you a free gold kit along with my latest #1 national best-selling book, The Great Devaluation. Call 800-900-8000. That's 800-900-8000. Get the best information, the best process, the best service, the best value. Call Advantage Gold at 800-900-8000. Call 800-900-8000.
Advantage Gold is not an investment advisor or a tax advisor. Consult with your financial advisor before investing.
For adults with moderate to severe plaque psoriasis who are candidates for systemic or phototherapy, now there's Skyrizi, Risankizumab Riza, a prescription-only 150 milligram injection. With Skyrizi, 3 out of 4 people achieve 90% clear skin at 4 months, and Skyrizi is just 4 doses a year after 2 starter doses.
Nothing in me go hand in hand. Nothing on my skin, that's my new plan. Nothing is every day.
Don't use if allergic to Skyrizi. Serious allergic reactions and an increased risk of infections or a lower ability to fight them may occur. Before treatment, your doctor should check for infection and tuberculosis. Tell your doctor if you have an infection or symptoms, such as fever, sweats, chills, muscle aches, or cough, or if you plan to or recently received a vaccine.
With Skyrizi, you could achieve 90% clearer skin. Ask your doctor about the #1 dermatologist prescribed biologic in psoriasis and visit skyrizi.com or call 1-866-SKYRIZI to learn more.
At Ocean First Bank, our first thought is you. We put you first in all we do. Community banking for a century. We treat you like your family. Whatever you need, whatever you dream, let's make it a reality. Ocean First Bank, putting you first.
Start the year off with a CD rate that, well, rates. For a limited time, we're offering a 13-month term for 4.5% APY with as little as $10,000. Don't delay. Visit oceanfirst.com for complete details.
Whatever you need, whatever you dream, let's make it a reality. Ocean First Bank, putting you first.
Certain rules and restrictions apply. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Opportunity Lender.
Gain presents a tale of longing and long-lasting scent. Dear love of my life, we were on the 12B bus when I caught a whiff. A scent so fresh, so life-changing, I had to find its source. I didn't know if you were the woman in the pink freshly washed cardigan or the retired mailman next to me, but I knew one of you was my soulmate. Ah, the scent of Gain Flings. Add Gain scent beads for an even longer lasting scent.
My brother-in-law died suddenly, and now my sister and her kids have to sell their home. That's why I told my husband we could not put off getting life insurance any longer. An agent offered us a 10-year, $500,000 policy for nearly $50 a month. Then we called SelectQuote. SelectQuote found us identical coverage for only $19 a month, a savings of $369 a year.
Whether you need a $500,000 policy or a $5 million policy, SelectQuote could save you more than 50% on term life insurance.
For your free quote, call SelectQuote at 1-800-434-3366. That's 1-800-434-3366. Or go to SelectQuote.com. 1-800-434-3366. That's 1-800-434-3366.
SelectQuote. We shop. You save. Full details on example policies at selectquote.com/commercials.
Our locally owned and operated small businesses are the heartbeat of our community, and the 97.3 ESPN South Jersey industry aces stand out as leaders in their fields, like Broadley's HVAC and Plumbing, a family-owned plumbing and HVAC company that's been serving Cape May and Atlantic County since 1911, and Maharaja Indian Restaurant in EHT. Visit MaharajaRestaurantNJ.com and take your taste buds on a journey. Support one of these fantastic industry aces today.
Now, more Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
A few more minutes left in the show. Friday edition. Sixers basketball tonight at 8 o'clock. Tom McGinnis on the call right here on 97.3 ESPN FM. Sixers starting a 3-game road trip. Sixers are in an interesting situation because there's a lot of speculation about who and what they are moving forward. And it comes at a time of the same day that the announcement comes out about Kyrie Irving asking for a trade. And, the Kyrie Irving thing is interesting to me, at least, in that, I know that there was reporting for a while by our friend of the show, NBA insider Brandon Scoopy Robinson. There was reporting by him that, Kyrie wanted to be in Brooklyn. He wanted, to be there long term. And the news came out today from ESPN's Adrian Wojnarowski that basically Kyrie and the Nets couldn't get a contract extension done. And that basically led to Kyrie saying, well, then I want to be traded, because if I'm not going to be here long term, then you're asking me to play out the rest of the year as basically a hired gun. If I'm going to be a hired gun, I might as well go somewhere else and do that. And the whole Nets situation has become a disaster. I want to play for you guys what Brandon Scoopy Robinson said earlier this week here on Game Night about the whole situation with the Brooklyn Nets. Because I think that the context of what he said earlier this week explains everything.
Back when the Nets fired Kenny Atkinson, I know that Steve Nash was not Kyrie and Kevin Durant's first choice. And in fact, from folks that I've spoken with, Ty Lue was KD's first choice. Kevin called Ty Lue and told him, hey, listen, I want you to be the next head coach of the Nets. Are you interested? And Ty Lue's response was, I'm all on board, but you got to talk to Kyrie first. And if you know anything about Ty Lue, he was the head coach with the Cavs at the time, and Kai was on that team, and Ty Lue was considered in many circles LeBron's guy. I don't know if Kai had that conversation with Ty Lue, and from my understanding, any issues they may have had were squashed. But the relationship that trumped every relationship was Sean Marks, the general manager of the Nets, hired his friend, Steve Nash. They played together in Phoenix. The relationship portion is important. It was important to Marks.
So just based on that, you realize that the Brooklyn Nets are a dumpster fire. And it just sounds like to me that Kyrie is tired. He's done with it. And, Sean Marks to me comes off as a guy who's a know-it-all. Sean Marks wanted Steve Nash. It didn't work out. Sean Marks didn't want to fire Steve Nash initially. Then he was basically forced into firing him. The whole relationship with Durant and Kyrie and the Nets has been a dumpster fire. And, for whatever reason, Sean Marks has been given a large amount of latitude in that organization. So, Kyrie and Durant wanted to team up. They went to an organization they thought that they could have a say in. And it turns out that the organization wasn't as invested in them as maybe they were in it. I don't know exactly what the situation is. But if you ask me where Kyrie Irving is going to play the rest of this year, I tend to think it's not going to be in the Eastern Conference. Maybe it's Dallas. Maybe it's the Lakers. I don't know. But if the Nets start plummeting and Kyrie isn't there anymore and KD is disgruntled and maybe he asks to be traded as well, it's one less thing the Sixers to worry about in the Eastern Conference standings. Jeff in Ocean City asking, the Sixers go 3-0 on this road trip. San Antonio tonight, Sunday against the Knicks, and then next week against the Boston Celtics. Can they go 3-0? Can they? Yes. Will they? No. I think they lose at least one game on the way. I think they win tonight's game, and then either New York or Boston is probably going to be a loss, just because by the time you get to the end of a road trip, players start getting tired and fatigued. You can't wait to get home. I'm Josh Hennig. This is Game Night. Have a great weekend.
Saturday morning in the locker room with Billy Schwein, former three-time Quaz joins me in the studio for all the Super Bowl hype. The sportsbook consigliere Dave Sherapan checks in from Las Vegas before he heads to Radio Row for Super Bowl 57. Brought to you by Dino's Subs and Pizza Margate. Hour 2, we'll hear from former head football coach at Haddon Heights High School, Ralph Scheibo. Coach Scheibo will tell us about Hassan Reddick's playing days. All that and more. It's the locker room with Billy Schwein, Saturday morning from 10 a.m. to noon on 97.3 ESPN.
Texting privacy policy and terms and conditions posted at textplan.us. Texting enrolls for recurring automated text marketing messages. Message and data rates may apply. Reply stop, opt out. Go to nomoredraftywindows.com for full offer details.
Attention all homeowners. Do you know when to replace your windows? Feeling too hot or cold? It's time to replace. Fog between the glass. Time to replace. Spending too much on expensive energy that literally goes out the window? It's definitely time to replace. If you've put off replacing windows in your home because it's too expensive, here's great news. You can now get a free in-home window consultation and free price quote from Renewal by Andersen, the company with the most 5-star reviews among leading full-service window replacement companies. And right now you can save $359 off every window and $887 off every door. Just text PLACE to 200-300 for your free consultation on top quality affordable windows or patio doors for $0 down, 0 payments, and 0 interest for a year. That's right, you don't pay a dime for an entire year. Plus save $359 off every window and $887 off every door. But hurry, these big dollar savings end this month. Text PLACE to 200-300 right now. Text the word PLACE to 200-300. Don't wait, text PLACE to 200-300.
Are you already doing digital advertising sales? Do you know all about targeted displays, social media marketing, the latest in SEM, and behavioral targeting? If so, you could be Town Square Media's new advertising sales star. We are looking for passionate sales professionals to join our media and digital advertising team. If consulting and connecting local businesses with their ideal audience for growth sounds exciting, well, let's have a conversation about you working for Town Square Media. Right now is the perfect time to join our team as an advertising account executive. Our comp package is amazing with unlimited earning potential, including base salary, mobile phone, auto package, 401k match, and more, along with world-class training and plenty of room for growth. If you're competitive, driven, and have the ability to communicate great ideas, we want to hear from you. Reach out to Michael Rubel, Market President, at 609-910-5249 or visit careers.townsquaremedia.com. Town Square Media is an equal opportunity employer.